A year or so ago, I would see these terrifying faces in my bathroom mirror every single time I walked by it. But this only happened during the night, and before I'd even walk past or near the bathroom, I always got this large, overwhelming feeling of fear and dread. The faces ranged widely, but they were all contorted, moved or shaped in ways that aren't normal, that weren't, well, human. I'd get so freaked out I'd almost cry, and sometimes I would be frozen in fear. A lot of times the faces were white, and other times pitch black with white outlines. Sometimes sharp teeth and blood spewing from their mouths. Sometimes they didn't even have mouths at all. They wouldn't ever speak or make any sound. They just stared. I could feel them watching me as I sped down the hallway, doing my best to ignore them. It went on for the rest of the year, and then faded away. I don't want whatever it was to come back. I don't even know what it was, honestly, or why it disappeared. All I know is that they weren't human, and I felt a strong negative energy in their presence. Throughout that year, I'd barely go to the bathroom during the night, or even leave my room, because that would mean walking past the bathroom. Ever since then, I've been hesitant to look in any mirror, in fear that they'll reappear one day. So this story takes place close to 20 years ago at this point. I was spending a lot of time with my friends Darren and Kelly. One day, we were all sitting on Darren's couch watching TV. Darren said, "I'm bored, let's do something." As we suggested things to do, I said, "Have you guys ever heard of the smelter?" To give some background, this all took place in Arizona, Prescott to be exact, and the smelter is located in Humboldt, Arizona. It is very old, late 1800s, I think. It was used to process metals, so we started driving out there, smoking cigarettes and listening to music. We arrived, and I started telling them how I had hung out here every weekend in junior high. My best friend at the time lived in Humboldt, so we would take girls to the smelter and drink, usual kid stuff. Nothing even remotely weird ever happened back then. So that's why I was totally unprepared for what was going to unfold that day. We approached the outside of the smokestack, and I noticed that the stairs had finally been ripped down. I guess whoever owned the property was sick of punk kids entering. I said, guess someone finally took the stairs out. I then explained that the holes every couple feet in the catwalk must have been used to shovel the ash. Giving up on entering, we moved to the side, and after what I'm about to tell you, I am glad we couldn't get in. Anyway, we were outside for about 15 minutes being loud, joking. Then it got really quiet and still. Thousands of bats suddenly came screeching out of the windows of the smelter. I mean, a ridiculous amount. I turned to my friends and said, "We have been standing out here making noise for close to 20 minutes. We didn't scare those bats." Right when I said that, we heard a loud thud that shook the ground beneath us, like something heavy fell down a porthole. Then silence. Our eyes widened. Nobody said anything. Then another thud. Then one more. And to this day, I haven't been able to explain this. We started hearing the loudest screeches ever. Dust started flying up, as if a bird was dying, struggling to flap its wings on the ground, but nothing was there. The mini tornadoes of dust multiplied and circled us. All we could really do was huddle closer together. It was like we had forgotten we could possibly run. I forget who ran first, but I kind of remember being out of it, not thinking correctly. We ran as fast as we could through the dust as the screeching grew louder in our ears when we made contact with it. Once we got past it, we ran all the way home. The first thing Darren said when we got there was, "If someone told me that story, I wouldn't believe them." At my mom's house in my early teens, I began feeling like I was being watched going to the bathroom during midnight and early morning hours. One morning, this feeling intensified when I was finished with my morning shower. I was drying my hair when I had this chilling feeling that someone was standing behind me. So I turned around and was horrified at what I saw. I saw the palest white face I'd ever seen. No distinguishable facial features, with a top hat. This faceless figure stood around 7 to 8 feet tall, poking its head around the doorway, just looking at me. It stared at me for a few seconds before disappearing into thin air. Since then, I've noticed the floorboards in front of the room I've lived in creak every night around 3 a.m. One day, I was stupid enough to answer a knock in the middle of the night and open the door, but no one was there. Another day, when my mom and my stepdad went out for drinks, I stayed home to play some video games when I heard someone come up the stairs with bottles and walk downstairs again with bottles, which was a daily routine for my mom and stepdad. Soon after that, the Wi-Fi went out, so I went to watch some TV instead. A couple of hours later, my mom and stepdad walked through the door, which was quite startling to say the least. I thought they had gotten home hours before that. After this, everything went back to the old stuff, floorboards creaking and the feeling of being watched. That continued for a while. A couple of years later, I moved to my dad's farm and noticed that everything went quiet for a month. Then, I began noticing that the front door would be locked every time I tried to open it, but only when it was me trying to open it. This didn't happen to my dad or stepmom ever. I then found out that my stepmom had seen a man with a top hat and a coat around 7 to 8 feet tall standing in the hallway when I hadn't been home. Soon after, I heard the fire safety door, which is locked from the inside after 9 p.m. and was right beside my room, open and close in rapid succession for over an hour starting at 3 a.m. The dogs were barking their souls out at the time. Later on, when I was home alone and had to do the evening rounds myself with locking everything up, I felt like I was being watched from the hay attic in the barn. I then saw something disappear behind the round bales that were positioned right in front of the fire safety door, which leads to the house. It got quiet again after this, until I moved out to my first apartment, which was on the first floor. I got that same feeling that I was being watched from outside the window, as if something was peeking in from the side. After this, things got a little bit weirder. I started having sleep paralysis for a couple of months, where I would see a blank-looking person standing in the corner of my bedroom before it would jump on the bed. This would immediately wake me up out of sleep paralysis, and the clock would always say that it was 3 a.m. Soon after that, I started seeing different people in my sleep paralysis episodes. Many of them were familiar to me, people I knew. Slowly but surely, I was able to get myself from trying to get out a scream in those dreams to being able to push myself out of the bed and crawl towards the person. But every time I would reach out for them, they vanished. One time, I was able to grab its ankle before it vanished. The episode stopped after that. Half a year later, I went abroad to do some work and travel. There, I didn't notice anything strange in particular, except for a short time where I felt like I was being watched from across a field when I started working at 3 a.m. And now, I've just had sleep paralysis again a week ago, where I was sleeping on a friend's couch and saw someone standing in the doorway. I pushed myself off the couch to confront the figure once again. But before I got to him, as expected, I woke up back on the couch to see my friend standing there checking on me. This repeated several times until I got hold of him again. This time, the figure let out a screech before disappearing. The next morning, I asked my friend if he had heard anything. He just told me that he heard loud mumbling coming from the room I was sleeping in and didn't think anything else of it. I'm truly so tired of this. Literally. I haven't gotten a decent night's sleep in years.